I think this is something that Jerry's been thinking about a lot. I don't think this is something you're just thinking of today. I hope not.
How long have you worked for the Cowboys?
I've worked here 26 seasons now.
You seen a lot?
I've seen a lot. I haven't seen everything, though.
What's everything?
I haven't seen the NFC Championship game. I haven't seen the Super Bowl. I think we know that. It's all been well documented that they haven't done that in 29 years. So, no, I haven't seen that. So when people say, man, you've seen it all, I think, no, I haven't. I haven't seen it all.
Talk to me about who was the coach when you were first hired?
Chan Gailey was the coach in 1999. That was my first season with the team. He was in his second year and last year with the Cowboys. So I've seen a few coaches, but Chan Gailey was the coach for that team. And that was kind of the end. It obviously was the end of the 90s, but it was really the end of the dynasty there because Deion, Emmett, Michael, Troy Aikman, Daryl Johnston, it was kind of the last year they were all together. And so I did get to see a little bit of that.
We're going to come back to Deion. You know that. Who comes next? Dave Campo. What's he like?
Campo, he was a ball of energy. You know, he'll even say that he was a better coach as a position coach. I mean, because Dave wanted to teach. Coaches are teachers, and that's the way, you know, he wanted to do that. And he felt more comfortable doing that. I remember him telling me one time when he was head coach, he was like, everybody's got a problem. Everyone comes to you. I've known these people for 15 years now, but yet if there's something wrong with the mailroom or something wrong here, they call me, you know, so that's what happens. So that being the head coach, I don't know if he was that comfortable doing that.
Who comes after Campo?
It was Bill Parcells.
That's a hard turn.
Yeah, and it was by design. And to you know, this was also about the time they were trying to get the stadium built, so they needed that wow factor. And everyone said, could they work together? Well, yeah, and they did work well together. And I think that Jerry is obviously the general manager, but he bounces off you know, decisions and things with a lot of people, and Bill Parcells was one. You know, how would you not trust him? He was an offensive guy, a defensive guy, a special teams guy. He's just the guru. That's why he's in the Hall of Fame. So that was very entertaining. You didn't miss a press conference when it was Bill Parcells.
Why did he end up leaving?
I just think the loss in Seattle when Romo, the ball went through his hands there as the holder, that was so tough. And I think the losses aided him way more than the wins were enjoyable. You know, it was just a tougher on him. And he told the story. He was flying, you know, and he was talking to, I guess, somebody in the cockpit. I don't know if he was even supposed to be there, but he said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And that's kind of a shame because I think those teams were ready to really take off. That 2017 that Wade Phillips was the coach for, you know, that was a team that he had built, and they were so good and so close to winning it. But Wade Phillips was the guy that came after him. So
how was Wade?
I think Wade is very similar to Mike McCarthy in that he really tries to take care of the players. You know, he'd been around for a long time and kind of gone up through the ranks, and you know, obviously with Wade Phillips, he was on his dad's staff, Bum Phillips, and so, you know, he really knew how what the players kind of were wanting, and so they loved you know, being with him, and you know, he was more, he treated them like adults. You know, it was just man-to-man conversation, and always took the blame for everything. You know, after a game, sometimes they'd lose by 20 points, and it would be like you would go through the roster in a press conference, and this guy played well, this guy played well, this guy played well, and you're like, well, somebody didn't play well, you know, like, because they lost. He was lost by like 20, but he always took the blame and he never threw his players under the bus at all.
Next up, Jason Garrett.
Jason Garrett. You know a little bit about this.
That was a long. Listen, I loved Wade. I will be the first one to tell you. I think he was just one of those people that you loved being around. He had a calming, almost grandfatherly energy, right? Of course, Jason Garrett's OC. Wade's out. Garrett's in. The transition was a little.
It was awkward because and I remember thinking this is going to be weird because he was hired before the head coach. And so he's here on his staff. And then all of a sudden, when he gets fired, mainly because the offense wasn't also doing well, then he comes over and takes over. And then they have success. And Wade, I mean, Jason Garrett is like, the villain in those horror movies that you think this is it for you. He's done, and then he pops up again, and it's like, wow, he lives again. Every time it was time, okay, this is hot seat, Jason Garrett. This is do or die. They'd go 12-4, make it to the playoffs, and get to the divisional round. And you're like, okay, well, it comes back next year, and then maybe struggle a little bit. Then he has a big year. So, it was 9 seasons for Garrett, but it wasn't always great. But when it was really time for him to do or die, he usually did, and that's why he was here for 9 seasons.
You also know something about how much Jerry values relationship, how much he values family. Jason Garrett was part of that family, right?
Sure.
So I remember even when it was announced that Garrett was out as the coach, Jerry looked a little sad.
Yeah. Well, he said it the other day. In 2020, when Garrett was gone, was the first year since Jerry bought the team that he wasn't writing a check to a Garrett.
Wow.
Whether it be Jim Garrett, his dad is on the scouting staff, John Garrett, a tight ends coach there with Jason Garrett, and of course, Jason, and actually, and then also Jason Garrett was, of course, a player. So he was writing checks to the Garrett family for a long, long time, and so there's so much respect for that family and where they where they come from. But he also understands it's time, time for change, and I think that's kind of why we're here as well.
Here comes Mike McCarthy.
Well, with Mike, it was, let's get a coach that's had the success we're looking for. He's been here. He understands how to win a Super Bowl. He has won a Super Bowl and he's won it at AT&T Stadium. So let's bring him in and to kind of change the culture here and get this team over the top. First year was rough. It was rough. Life was rough. 2020, of course, and I don't know if that's an excuse, but it seemed like a pretty good one because it was tough. It was tough to really, when you're trying to build culture and get everyone together, but yet everyone has to be 6 feet apart. I mean, like, it's kind of hard to build a team together when that's kind of what we're dealing with. So I think he gets a good pass for that. Not to mention Dak gets hurt that year. The next 3 years, 12-5, 12-5, 12-5, but. He was brought here to take the team to another level and to win in the playoffs, and they really didn't do that. They won one playoff game, and so that's the standard. And that's the one thing about Jerry. If you look at this place on that, he's not going to change the standard. He's not. The standard's going to be to go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter if it hasn't happened in 29 years. That's what the goal is. And so I think at the end of the day, that's kind of where we are with him.
Insert the rumor mill has already begun.
Yeah.
Now, let's start with, were you surprised when you got the announcement that Mike was out?
Not really. Not as it continued to go. Now, at first, when Jerry denied the Bears' request, it did look like, okay, well, he's coming back. But then when you think about Jerry's a businessman, and he's always been that. He understands, why would I want to negotiate with anyone else? If you and I are negotiating, I don't need the Bears coming in here and throwing out different money and all that stuff. So, and I think that has to be factored in. I think he wanted McCarthy back at the right price, under the right, guidelines, and it just didn't work out for what Mike was trying to do. So I was, as it went on through the weekend, then I wasn't as surprised that was the decision.
And here comes the rumor mill a-churning. Deion's already talked to him.
Deion, yep. And I think Jerry probably looked at that like any excuse I can have to call Deion Sanders up. That was such a unique relationship that they had. Just when you think about how he recruited, Deion to sign as a free agent. And not only to help this team, but to hurt that team, the 49ers. He couldn't beat the 49ers that year, so why don't you take the best player on defense and put him on your team?
Some people say that's the best free agent he has signed since.
Well, probably. He hadn't been on the cover of Sports Illustrated. He was just sitting there. And what was funny, he was, could they pay this guy $7 million a year? It's like, now you look at it and, that's a good rate for a cornerback. But Deion was the best in the game. And here he is again, and he's built Colorado. He's done it. He's doing it his way, which is, I think they can relate to each other a lot, because money is a factor. Money, they love money, but they also understand that we're going to do this my way or this way, and that doesn't mean that they can't adapt to things. But I think there's always been a mutual respect there between both sides.
Do you really think there is any shot that Deion Sanders could be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys?
Not really. I would be, that would be a surprise. Not a surprise that they talked, but it would be a surprise that if Deion was there. You know, college coaches can have a lot more control. Think about what Deion is doing right now, and he goes into living rooms and talking to kids. Is he recruiting the kid or the parent? Because the parent remembers prime time with the do-rag and says, "Oh my God, this guy's in my living room. Son, are you sure you don't want to go here?" I mean, like he's already halfway in the door at that point. So, and that's something that he'll always have in college. And you go and recruit now. NIL is a big deal. You gotta have the money as well. But in the NFL, it's a little different. I mean, it's a salary cap, and you know you're drafting where you draft. And I don't know if Deion really wants to play against his son, or both sons, or whatever. I just don't think that's what he wants. I think college is where you can have a little bit more control. Now, it may not be at Colorado. I would be shocked if he's coaching in the NFL at all, and then certainly here.
Only other question on Deion. To the people who say that's like putting two bulls in the same arena, you think they're more alike? And I would have to agree with you. I think that they understand each other and there is mutual respect.
Definitely, and I think Jerry welcomes that. And Deion probably does as well. You know, you always want people to kind of push back a little bit. That's how you get challenged. That's how you improve. And I think there's just a misperception about Jerry when it comes to, like, he does it just his way, doesn't listen. That's not the case. I mean, yes, he's got the title, but he listens a lot to what Will McClay is talking about from the draft and free agency. He listens to his head coach a lot. The head coach gets his way more than people think. Okay, I mean, there might have been some things that Mike McCarthy would have liked to have done differently, but for the most part, I think that they do get what they want. I think that wouldn't be the issue. I think it would work. But with Deion, you know, he's not, he hasn't shown to be a coordinator in anything yet. So you're going to have to pay top dollars for coordinators on both sides of the ball. That's where I think it's probably going to be a little too much for them to make this whole thing work for both sides.
Who's your early favorite to be the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys?
The favorite that I think will happen, I mean, well, I don't know if it will happen, but I would say Kellen Moore has got to be at the top of the list there, just because it checks a lot of the boxes that I think that Jerry and the Cowboys will look at. You got to remember, this ain't for everyone. This spot here is not for everyone. And some of those coaches that I mentioned earlier, it wasn't for them either. Yeah, they're going to take the job. You know, I'm going to be the head coach of the Cowboys. But that doesn't mean it's a good fit for them or a good fit for the team. The reason why I say that about Kellen Moore, you got to understand. You got to understand how this works. Yes. Sometimes your practice field has an event on it.
A helicopter.
Sometimes a helicopter is flying around here. You understand that. I thought one thing Jason Garrett was really good at was blocking all that out and saying, hey, he used to say it all the time. We would laugh, you know. He'd go, let's go play. We'll play at home, away, the parking lot, or the moon. He would always say that. Be your best regardless of circumstance. And that is a great motto to have here with the Cowboys, because there's a lot of circumstances that change things. So somebody that understands that, a young offensive-minded coach, that's what Kellen Moore brings you. Does he hurt his leaving? Does that hurt the team you can't beat? I mean, I'm sure they can figure it out over there in Philadelphia, but I think that he's grown. So I could see that being an option there. And you know, he may look at some of the older guys, you know, the Pete Carrolls of the group, still jumping around at 74 years old.
A 74-year-old head coach, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, hey, you know, you can't discriminate around here. You know, you can't do that. I hear he runs miles every day and all that. He's good. He's probably in better shape than me. So, no, you know, the thing about him, he's built culture, and he's won Super Bowls as well. So, I mean, there's some things there. You know, there may be a coach on some teams right now that are still in the playoffs. That I think that Jerry might be entertained looking at as well. You know, Jason Witten is out there.
Are you serious? Do you really think Jason Witten's going to get a real look?
I don't know if he'll get a real look as the head coach. He might, but I think he'll get a look to be on the staff. I'd be surprised if Jason Witten is not on the coaching staff this year as a tight ends coach or some position coach. I think that would probably be a good transition for him because, it's a copycat league, and you see, who's the only coach? Who's the only player in Jason Witten's time as a tight end? Who's the only player when he was with the Cowboys that started over him? There's only one guy, Dan Campbell. And then look at Dan Campbell. Look what he's doing in Detroit. Look what he's building. Look at the intensity that he brings. I think Jason Witten would bring that as well. So I think that's something that they really are looking at. And maybe he's not ready to be a head coach right now for the NFL. He's done it in high school. It's a big leap, I would think, high school, to the NFL as a head coach. But I think being on the staff is something that could happen.
I'm trying to think. Any other Easter eggs? Anything else you could think of? Any bold? I love to ask you about this. Any bold predictions?
Well, I think Jason Witten being on the staff was pretty bold. I think that was part of it right there. But look for some former players to be on this staff. Of the list that we threw out on DallasCowboys.com of about 20 guys, I think 4 of them were former Cowboy players, and Jason Witten and Kellen Moore, Deion, and then Aaron Glenn from the Lions. That is one that's intriguing to me. As a player, Aaron Glenn was a undersized cornerback that was told forever he was too small to play in the NFL, and he played like 11 years. And you can't play cornerback in this league. He reminds me a lot of Jordan Lewis that's on this team. You can't be play cornerback at the 5'8", 5'9", and not be a dog. And that's what he did. That's how he played. That's how he coaches. That's how his players play for him. That I think would be a home run hire if Jerry did that. That's one that I don't know if that's a wild card to me, but that's one that I really hope the Cowboys take a good look at, not in a real look. Interview him the right way as a real candidate to come in here and be a head coach.
Senior Bowl's coming up. How soon you think we could have a new coach here?
Well, I think it's tricky. Sooner the better, because you need to start getting a staff. But at the same time, you also have to get it right. And so you can't just say, go to dinner here with this guy and dinner here and let's get it done and let's make this thing happen. Now, I think this is something that Jerry's been thinking about a lot. I don't think this is something you're just thinking of today. I hope not. This has been going on for a while. He gets asked about it every time he does an interview, so it's got to be on his mind. So sooner the better, but get it right. So it somehow figure out a way that both of those coexist.
Last one I have for you, Nick. No secret, this was a bit of a down year in terms of the enthusiasm. How much do you think Jerry is weighing the hire that's going to energize his fan base?
I think it factors in. It has to, and it's not just the fan base. It's the culture here. It's the culture inside the building. It's the players. They need a jolt. They need that, and I think you're going to see something in free agency too that you haven't seen before. I know. You don't have to go get 5 of the top players, but get 1, get 2 maybe. Go that route a little bit. I think the players, I think the staff, I think just this entire culture needs that. And so yes, the head coach can certainly help, but I think you've got to build some excitement. And some of those names, bringing back some of those guys, it'd be the most glorified tight end coach they've ever had if they bring in like Jason Witten. But I think he needs some of that, and I think Jerry feels it, he senses it, and probably needs it for himself too, because it wasn't a great year. And I think that change is needed. It's evident, and I think that now we'll see just how much change they make. I think that everything kind of does start at the top with the coaches, because the head coach that you get brings in different assistants, and then you've got to make sure everyone's on the same page. But a new coach doesn't always change what's going on here, because I put some of it on the players as well. And yes, this team had a lot of injuries last year. There's no doubt about that. A lot of the guys they were leaning on, the Pro Bowl players, A lot of them were on injured reserve. But you can't forget the New Orleans game, week 2. You can't forget that. The guys were healthy. They were there, and they got run out of AT&T Stadium. And so that was a problem. So before Dak got hurt, before Micah Parsons' injury, before D-Law went down, this team wasn't playing well early on. And look at the first and third quarters. Look at the third quarter this year. Cowboys scored 1 touchdown in the third quarter all season long. They got outscored, I think it was like 65-15. And I know the halftime isn't that long to make adjustments, but coming out of the third quarter, they never made any. And even in the first quarter, not a lot of scoring. That shows a lack of preparation. And you don't lose games on Sunday all the time. You lose it on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday with the preparation. That has been a problem around here for a few years. That goes to coaching, but it also goes to the players. You know, I mean, Mike McCarthy didn't fumble the ball against Cincinnati when the punt was blocked and all that. There's a lot of things that weren't necessarily on him, but still, it does all fall to him. So it may not be his fault, but it's his problem, and that's kind of the way it went down.